rise, please.
Yeah, and how'd you get to change that from green to red?
He said he got it different.
Oh.
It's brighter too.
I just thought maybe there was something in it that we could have changed the color.
Minnesota County Court of Common Pleas is again in session. The Honorable Christine Croce presiding.
Thank you. You may be seated. You may call your next witness.
We're going to call Matthew Sinopoli.
Would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat there in the witness chair. Once you're seated, you may remove your mask. Speak into the microphone, please, and keep your voice up. Go ahead, Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Sir, can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record, please?
My full name is Matthew Sinopoli. Last name is spelled Inopoli.
Sir, can you tell the jury where you're employed?
I'm employed at Akron Fire Department.
What do you do for them?
I'm a firefighter paramedic.
And how long have you been a firefighter paramedic?
Approximately 5 years.
Can you tell the jury just generally what type of education, training you undertook to become a firefighter paramedic with the Akron Fire Department?
I went through an associate's degree with Akron University, as well as paramedic program and firefighter academy.
Okay. And what station are you assigned right now?
Station 4.
Firefighter Sinopoli, I'd like to draw your attention to May 15th of 2017. Do you recall that date?
I do.
And were you working in your capacity as a firefighter on that date for the Akron Fire Department?
Yes, I was.
What shift were you working?
C shift.
And how long had you been working at that point on May 15th of 2017?
I believe it was my 3rd or 4th shift on the job.
3rd or 4th shift on the job. How many fires had you responded to at that point?
This was my 2nd fire.
Your 2nd fire. Now, Mr. Sinopoli, did you have a chance to respond to a fire at 693 Fultz in the city of Akron on that date?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And roughly, do you know what time you were called to that location?
I believe it was about 2:30 in the morning.
Okay. And when you responded to the scene, can you tell the jury what you saw?
When we arrived on scene, the house on Fulton Street was completely involved in fire. The next door neighbor's house was also becoming slightly involved with fire. There were power lines down across the street, which limited the ladder truck's access, which is the truck that I was on.
Okay, so you were on a ladder truck?
Yes.
What's a ladder truck? What do they do? What's your primary role when you're on a ladder truck?
Our primary role is initially search and rescue, and then as well as ventilation.
Okay. Firefighter Sinopoli, I'm referring you to a map that's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 14. Do you recognize that map?
I do.
Okay, and that's the neighborhood of 693 Fultz. Is that fair?
Yes.
Can you show the jury on the map where it was you parked your ladder truck? And I know you said there was some difficulty getting close to the house. Describe that for us.
Okay. Initially, when we arrived on scene, the engine was in front of the ladder. They parked about here. There were power lines down across the street going to the house. Ladder 4 had to back up this way and come around to Hillcrest, come down Folsom. We parked approximately here.
When you first got there, tell the jury what you did.
When we initially arrived on scene, it was Lieutenant Eisele and I on the ladder truck. We both observed that there was fire encroaching on this house. The engine had this house pretty much handled at the time with surrounding it. We checked to see if anyone was in this house, at which time we realized that there was an occupant in this house.
Okay. And do you know the address of that house?
I do not recall.
Okay. If I told you it was 699 Fultz, would you have a reason to disagree with that?
No.
Mr. Sinopoli, I'm showing you two documents. They're marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibits 110 and 115. Please take a minute to look at those and let me know when you're finished. Okay, are you finished? All right, and we're going to go over these in more detail, but very generally, do these photographs, what do they show?
The first photograph is both the neighbor's house and the house that was involved heavily in the fire. And the second photograph is the main house.
The main house. Do these two photographs fairly and accurately represent the scene as you saw it on May 15th of 2017?
Yes, they do.
Okay, Firefighter Sinopoli, I'm going to show you what's been marked previously as State's Exhibit number 110. This is the house I believe you said was involved, is that fair?
That's correct.
And describe this house for us. What house were you referring to there?
This was the neighbor's house that we initially checked to see if there was an occupant, and you can see here on the side that there was fire that was encroaching on it.
And that's over here.
Yes.
And on the map there, can you just point out where that house is located again?
Sure. It would be this house right next door.
And you're referring to State's Exhibit 14?
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm showing you a document that's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 115. You see that on your document camera there?
I do.
Okay. And this is just another photograph of the side of that house there. Fair?
That's right.
Okay. Firefighter Sinopoli, you said you went to that house?
That's correct.
And tell the jury what happened when you went to that house.
When we went to that house, we knocked on the door for approximately 30 seconds to a minute with no answer. We could see in the side window on the side a shadow of a person moving inside the house. We continued to knock on the door with no answer, so we eventually kicked in the front door, which is when the occupant of the house was coming out to us.
Was the occupant a male or female?
A male.
Okay. And describe his demeanor at that point.
He appeared upset about the house next door on fire.
Okay.
He told me that since there was a car in the driveway, he believed the occupants of the house next door were home.
And were you able to get him out of the house?
We were.
Okay. How easy or hard of a process was that to get him out of the house?
He gave us a little bit of struggle initially. I believe there's something about his dog still in his house that he wanted to go back in and get.
What do you mean by a little bit of a struggle? I mean, were you fighting with him? I mean, how did that
go? He was just slightly resistant. Initially, he wanted to go back in and get the dogs, but we were not fighting with him, no.
Okay. Did you let him go get the dogs?
We did not at the time, no.
Did you notice anything about him?
We initially believed he was intoxicated. We later found out that he was actually deaf.
Do you know who Paul Clegg is, a man named Paul Clegg?
I don't recall.
Okay. All right. Judge, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
John?
Judge, we don't have any questions, thank you.
Firefighter Sinopoli, thank you very much. Yours, please. You may call your next witness.
We're going to call Nick Eisele.
Oh, thank you. We're just trying to get traffic going in one direction. Do you solemnly swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Go ahead and have a seat in the witness chair. Once you're seated, if you'll remove your mask, and make sure you speak into the microphone, keep your voice up, please.
Sir, if you could please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name and then spell your last name for the record. I'm Lieutenant Nicholas Eisele, Eisele,
And, sir, how are you employed?
through the city of Akron, Lieutenant.
And how long have you been with the city of Akron?
It'll be 18 years in December.
And all of that's been with the fire department?
That's correct.
And you said you're a lieutenant, are you an investigator or?
No, just Lieutenant, sir.
Okay. And then in your 18 years, how long have you been a lieutenant?
It'll be about 6 years now.
Okay. We've heard from many firemen already, and we've heard about their qualifications, but just for the record, if you could just briefly give us your training and background in order to hold the job that you do with the Akron Fire Department.
I'm actually a hazmat SORT board member of the hazmat team for 17 years. Also hold a fire instructor card, held that for 12 years. I am a fire investigator, but I don't act as a fire investigator on the Akron Fire Department, but I hold that certification and just a lot of other miscellaneous trainings.
All right. And currently, what is your job duties?
I am currently assigned to Ladder 4, which is at Station 4, and working on shift at 24 hours on, 48 hours off.
Okay. And that's 7:30 to 7:30?
Mm-hmm.
And let me direct your attention specifically to May 15th of 2017. Were you a lieutenant at that time?
Yes, sir.
And what equipment were you working on at that
I
time?
was on Ladder 4 that day.
Okay. And we just heard from Fireman Sinopoli a moment ago. Was he on that crew too?
That's correct.
All right. And you were working together that day?
Yeah.
And that would have been the same equipment?
Yeah, Ladder 4.
All right. And he described for us already what Ladder 4 does and what your job responsibilities, so we'll kind of move through that. When you got there that day, could you please tell us first of all, were you the first or second to arrive?
Engine 4 and Ladder 4 were first on scene. We arrived at the same time. Engine 4 was in front, and they were the one who called in the initial size up of the scene.
All right. And when you arrived, can you please describe for the jury the scene that you saw?
Upon arriving on the scene, if I could use a map, we pulled up on Height Street.
There's a marker. See that pen there? If
Yeah.
you push the button, don't put it in your eye yet. There you go.
So we came on Height Street, and where there's heavy fire and heavy smoke, we saw, I think someone reported heavy smoke prior to getting on scene. Upon getting on scene, Engine 4 pulled right about here, reported that there was heavy fire from the structure. Wires were down in the street, and Engine 4 could not pass around this point in the curve, and that they were going to be going defensive and doing a blitz attack. We pulled up right here, couldn't get past Engine 4, so we had to advise the Ladder 4 driver to pull back around, go up Hillcrest, down Fultz, and set up right here.
And why was it that you couldn't go up that way?
Engine 4 was blocked by down power lines.
Okay. And we've had prior testimony about a blitz attack, so we know what that is. But I don't know that we've heard about defensive mode.
Typically, a defensive mode is when you have heavy fire and you're not going to be making entry into the structure. You're going to be fighting most of the fire from outside and doing outside activities instead of going interior.
All right. As opposed to an offensive attack.
Offensive attack, which would be interior attack.
You're going to go right in as soon as you can.
In and try to extinguish fire from the inside instead of outside.
All right. So when you get there, you and your fellow firemen engage in a blitz attack, defensive mode here, and ultimately, are you able to then at least put the fire out?
Yeah, eventually.
All right. And if you recall, approximately what time in the morning would this have been?
It was early morning, after 12. I can't recall exact time.
Okay. And then, how long did it take to get this fire under control?
We were on scene quite a while. We were on scene till we got off shift at 7:30 in the morning. So I would say, estimated time to actually extinguish the fire completely, 4 hours.
All right. And if I told you that the fire was reported sometime between 2 and 3 a.m., would that seem to be about right?
That sounds correct.
Okay. Fireman Sinopoli mentioned going to the neighbor's house. Were you with him when he did that?
Yeah, upon arriving on scene, as I said, we had ladder 4 pull around. We went directly to the house. The house next door was involved and had fire on the siding and into the window. So I advised Firefighter Sinopoli knock on that door and make sure there's no one in that structure while I did a 360, which would be a complete circle around the house that was involved. I think it's 693.
All right, and so 693 is completely involved in flames, fair?
Yeah.
I believe the house next door, 699, you said it had also flames?
Had also flames involved on the siding, and so we wanted to make sure there was no occupants in that structure as well.
All right. Was there any evidence that you saw that was from a separate fire, or was that from the fire that was emanating from 693?
I'd assume it's directly from that fire at 693.
And is that, a normal phenomenon for the heat from the one fire to start or jump to another house?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially in defensive attacks, we tend to put a line on the side, the houses next door, to keep them from becoming involved.
All right. So that is not unusual.
No.
So you actually went on an offensive attack at 699. Is that fair?
It wouldn't really be an offensive. It would be more of just clearing the house, making sure no one was in there. We never made entry into the house. I believe the occupant came to the door and got out of the house on his own.
All right. And does the name Paul Clegg mean anything to you?
I heard it later on at the scene. I didn't know who it was, but I believe it's the neighbor.
Okay. I'm just going to show you a few photos, and I should ask you, when you guys go to the fire, your primary goal is what?
Life safety and fire extinguishment.
All right. And during the fire, is it fair to say that nobody's sitting around taking photographs of the fire?
Typically, no. You don't really see what's going on around. You're busy working, but
I'm not talking about citizens. I'm talking about the firefighters.
Now, occasionally there will be a video one who will come in and take video, but that's usually well involved into the fire.
All right, and that did not happen in this case.
I don't believe it did.
So typically, anybody that's there that's a qualified firefighter is going to be fighting that fire,
Doing something that,
not taking pictures.
not taking.
So is it fair to say that it's very rare that you actually have a photo from the fire department of the house actually
Of active
full?
fire from a firefighter, yes.
Okay. So some of the pictures I'm going to show you, and let's see here. All right, in using State's Exhibit 113, which is previously identified, well, first of all, next to you is a map that you were using, and I
Okay.
believe that's State's 13? 14, excuse me. And does this, on the slide number 2 of State's 113, does that resemble the map next to you that you used on the easel?
Yes.
All right. Now, the difference would be that on this slide, there's actually designations of addresses. Is that fair?
Correct.
And do you see 693 Fultz where you fought the fire?
Yes, sir.
And where is that?
On the corner on Fultz Height.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask you, if you just speak into the microphone, because you're kind of trailing off and there's a fan and
Sorry.
that's okay. Acoustics are not the best.
Showing you slide 5 of that same exhibit, what are we looking at here?
This would be the front of the house, and what we typically label the house as an A, B, C, D side, 4 sides. A being the front, B being clockwise to the left. This would be the A and D side of the house.
All right. And your shift ends at 7:30, is that correct?
That's correct.
So at 7:30, would you have, or sometime around 7:30, have left the scene?
Yes.
When you left the scene, obviously there was another the next shift was there,
Yeah,
correct?
the oncoming company relieves us, yeah.
All right. At what stage was the fire when you left?
The fire was extinguished at that stage.
All right. Extinguished and smoldering, or was it?
There was smoldering, correct.
Okay. So that would have been sometime around 7:30.
Mhm.
Did you ever make entry into 693?
Later on, we tried to make entry into the attic and couldn't get down the stairs. The stairs were burnt out, and so they just called everyone out.
Okay.
But that was well into it after the fire was extinguished.
All right. Would that have been closer to when you left?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Other than what you've told us about today, arriving, clearing the house next door, and fighting this fire and putting out this fire at 693 Fultz, did you have any other involvement in the investigation of this case?
No, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Gentlemen,
We have no questions, Judge, thank you.
Lieutenant, you're excused. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a somewhat full afternoon, so we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. It's going to be a little longer because there's some additional evidence that needs to be marked for the upcoming witnesses. So we're going to take an hour-and-a-half break. I have 11:30 on the clock. We're going to break until 1 for lunch. Remember the admonitions I've previously given you concerning your conduct. Again, it's important that you be fair and attentive throughout the trial. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else, including the media. You must not post or read anything about this case on the internet or any electronic device, including your cell phone. Any such discussion, if discovered, could lead to a mistrial and severely compromise the party's right to a fair trial. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence, and do not form or express an opinion on this case until it's finally been submitted to you. Leave your notepads upside down on your chairs, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock.
All rise, please.